Hi, friends. Welcome to the third installment of my Advent series. The first two installments dealt with peace and faith, and this time around, we're going to take a look at hope. Now, I love the subtle nuances between the words faith and hope. They are very subtle. You can, at times, use these words interchangeably. Like I can come to you as a friend and I can say, you've got to have faith. Or I could say to you, you've got to keep your hopes up. And either way, I can be telling you the same thing. One thing to consider when you're trying to look at the difference between the two is that for a faith to be right with God, 100% of it has to be put in Him. It's utterly dependent on where you put your attention. God does not share faith. He says, "Thou shalt have no gods before me." That is the first commandment. Now, you can also put your hope in the Lord, but we're people and, we're distracted. Lots of opportunities pop up here and there, and our hopes can be scattered all over the place. And I don't think that God necessarily gets upset with us for that. But when we do put our hopes in the Lord, that hope can be described as pretty much what we want to get out of our faith. Now, mind you, I'm grabbing at a few nuances here, and I'm trying to shove them into a nutshell. But these words go super deep. They go so deep that I can guarantee you that no matter what time of the year you are watching this video, somewhere in the world, next Sunday, there's going to be a pastor who is going to deliver a sermon on hope, and it's going to be like an hour-long sermon. Somewhere else in the world, on that same Sunday, there's going to be a pastor somewhere delivering an hour-long sermon on faith. I, on the other hand, am going to spend the next roughly 7 minutes talking about hope by looking at one of my favorite stories in the Bible. This is where the angel Gabriel appears before Zechariah and tells him that his prayers have been heard, that he is going to have a son. I strongly encourage you to read this story before you watch this video. It can be found in Luke 1, 5 through 25, and then 57 through 80. Zechariah is a priest, and the story starts when he receives a great honor. He is chosen to go into the temple and light the incense while the rest of the assembled worshipers pray outside. Now, the Bible tells us that Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth are both upright and blameless in the sight of the Lord. And this is important because they are both carrying a lot of culturally induced shame. They are old, well beyond childbearing years, and they are childless. And at the time, their culture viewed this as a sign that God didn't like them for some reason. One can assume that there were all sorts of whispers and speculation as to why God withheld his blessing from their lives. Now, when Zechariah enters the temple to light the incense, the rest of the worshipers would stay outside and pray, probably for their country and probably asking God to send their Messiah soon. And Zechariah was likely praying as he was lighting the incense. He probably prayed for the same things that the rest of the crowd was praying for, but he also likely threw in a prayer for he and Elizabeth as well, because at some point in the process, an angel appears. Now, the first thing that the angel says is, "Don't be afraid." And this is pretty much the first thing an angel always says, because when an angel pops out of nowhere, it tends to freak people out, and they have to assure these people, "Hey, don't worry, God has sent me." The angel says, "Don't be afraid, God has heard your prayers. You and Elizabeth are going to have a son, and he is going to be the one that everyone has been waiting for. He's going to be the one to prepare the way of the Lord." Imagine getting everything that you hope for in one shot. Imagine asking God for a child and asking God for the Messiah to come, and an angel appears, and the answer is yes and soon. And that they are going to be tied together, that the son that is coming to you is going to be the last domino to fall before the Messiah comes. What would you do? Remember, he and his wife are old and have hoped so long that it's basically just a habit now. Instead of bursting out with joy at this great news, he asks the angel, "How am I supposed to believe this? I get it. I have my hopes. I've been on the brink of seeing them realized only to have the rug pulled out from under me, and I know that a lot of you have been in similar situations. It's difficult to keep your hopes up. We keep going back to the drawing board, trying harder, getting better, but steeling ourselves to the fact that we can't make the world change on our own. We need God's help to break through. If that's been your reaction to dashed hopes, I just want to tell you that I think you're on the right track. The Bible tells us that God knows the desires of our heart, and He wants to give them to us. But He also cares a whole lot more about our relationship with Him and for our spiritual growth, and He's not going to give us anything that is going to derail either one of those. And it's important to remember that just because He isn't giving you what you're asking for right now doesn't mean that it's not coming at the right time. Verse 6 tells us that both Zechariah and Elizabeth were blameless in God's sight. Were they like this because they tried so hard to eliminate anything in their life that might keep God from giving His blessing? Did they, through the years, just keep trying harder and harder and just kept becoming better and better in Him? And still, Zechariah's response to the angel is so very human. How am I supposed to believe this? Now, the angel's response is something that's straight out of heaven. I wonder if he sounded incredulous as he said, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God who gave me this message to give to you, and you doubt it? The angel Gabriel has an existence that is very different from ours. We'll see him again in the next Advent segment as he appears before Mary. But if you go back into the Old Testament, you'll see him in the book of Daniel. And in all that time, he has seen that whatever God decrees happens. There's no faltering of faith in the angels. They've seen too much to doubt a word of the Lord. Moments of doubt are more normal on our plane of existence. God knows that, and He doesn't let our moments of doubt erase all of our years of putting our hopes in Him. Zechariah had spent a lifetime putting his hopes in the Lord, and even with this moment of doubt, the Lord still gives him the desire of his heart. Are your hopes put in the Lord? If you don't know the Lord, you are not far from knowing Him. If your hopes are not put in the Lord, you are not far from having them put in the Lord. He made you. He wants you here. He wants you to be you, but He wants you to be you in Him. It's supposed to be like a partnership. He wants you to have the desires of your heart, and He wants to teach you how to have those things in ways that are good for you and won't derail your spiritual growth or your relationship with Him. Spend some time with the Lord and ask Him how you might adjust your hopes so that they are firmly in Him. Thank you for watching. If you found this beneficial, please subscribe. If you'd like to hear more about the encounter between the angel Gabriel and Zechariah, Pastor Myron at Journey Church Tacoma recorded a great explanation a few years ago. Check the description below for a link to his explanation.